If you like these videos, please check out my full course at www.lsat.totaltestprep.net with tons of clearly explained actual LSAT questions written by someone who's mastered test and helped others master it, and an evaluation period where you only pay if you want to continue.
Alright, in this video we're going to cover the parallel reasoning arguments. So what is the parallel reasoning question? So what do these parallel reasoning questions ask for? In other words, what does it mean to identify the argument which is parallel in reasoning? How do these questions appear on the test? And how do we approach these questions? Okay, so in terms of the basic information, parallel reasoning questions basically ask you to identify an argument that has an identical logical structure. Now, in evaluating legal reasoning and reasoning in general, and responding to arguments in particular, you need to be proficient at identifying how the elements fit together. So that's the legal context. These questions are always going to deal with arguments because in order to identify an identical argument, there must be an argument to begin with. And the question will generally deal with one speaker, though there might be multiple perspectives. And the answer choices will be another argument which has to have identical structure. The content and the grammar of the argument can differ, but the logical relationships have to be the same. In terms of the basic approach, so you need to be able to identify the relationships between the statements in the argument, and then identify the one answer choice which has those identical relationships. So you evaluate the argument by identifying the premises and conclusion. And it's very common for these actually to have multiple perspectives. Then you evaluate the types to get the idea of the basic structure of the argument, and once again, being sensitive to the different types of arguments is going to make it easier to recognize the relationships between the statements. Then you go through the choices, looking for that one choice which parallels the logical relationships between the statements in the argument above. So statements are identically logically related if they have the same meaning connection. So premises have the same scope and strength, and they fit together in the same way. That's what that means. So you're looking for something that has the same scope, meaning the same breadth in terms of how many things it talks about, has the same strength, so the same degree of certainty, and then how do they connect? They have to fit together in the same way. So the premises need to get you to the conclusion in the same way. So in addition to the same strength and scope, and how they connect together, they get to the conclusion, which is, I guess, a more general way of saying that. So they need to get to the conclusion in the same way, and then the conclusion has the same strength and scope. So that's what you're looking for. That's what it means when arguments are parallel or logically identical. The premises have the same scope and strength and the same relationship. They get you to the conclusion the same way, and then the conclusion has the same strength and scope. So the correct choice will be an argument whose statements are identical in terms of those logical relationships. So the argument could talk about something completely different. It doesn't have to talk about the same thing. And the grammar of the argument could be completely different. So you could have a different number of sentences, but you need to have the same number of statements. So different number of statements and different sequence of statements. They don't have to be in the same order, and they don't actually have to have the same number of sentences. But the grammar and the content being different has no bearing. In fact, certainly all of the time, the content will be different. The grammar won't necessarily always be different. But if it is, it's not an issue. The correct choice is correct because it's parallel in terms of its logic. The incorrect choice is just going to present a different argument. So either the relationships or the meaning could be different in terms of how they connect and what they're talking about. The number of premises, the number of conclusions could be different. So if that's different, so if the number is different of statements, so not sentences, remember, you can have a different number of sentences but still have the same number of statements. But if you have a different number of statements, then that's incorrect. Likewise, if the original argument is flawed, it'll state that, so it'll tell you that it's flawed, and then you need to look for the answer choice that has the same flaw. The incorrect choices for these may or may not be flawed. If they are flawed, then they're going to be flawed in a different way, and it'll be a different flaw.